Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Tim Hart, branch manager of Van Dyke Mortgage here in Fort Myers, Florida. Welcome to an episode of the Heartbeat Show podcast. With me today, we got a friend of mine. We got to know each other through Little League. His wife's also a realtor. Noelle, shout out to Noelle. We got Brian Tietz from Brian Tietz Photography. Brian, how you doing, sir?
Doing great. Great to see you and great to hear from you, man.
Yeah, you as well. So, you guys, I thought it'd be cool to bring on Brian. Brian, brag about you for a minute. I've been seeing your photos and the work you're doing for Gulfshore Life magazine. Really cool photos you've been taking, amazing work. And so I thought it'd be kind of neat to have a conversation with you, maybe about your business and the future of photography and how you got into it and all that stuff. So I appreciate you coming on, man.
For sure. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, no doubt. And you got a cool background, man, going on. I don't know if that was intentional. We got like
I've got a small studio in my house, and I had a big commercial shoot last week, so I just unpacked everything. So it's actually probably a little messier than normal.
No, it looks like it's on purpose. So good job.
No.
Do it for the next one if you ever do another one. Hey, so I want to first get into your photography business. Let's talk about how did you end up getting into it, photography business, and how long you been doing it?
Well, I got into photography when I was in high school. I got my first job at Eckerd Express Photo Lab. So I worked there my senior year of high school, and working there.
Time out. So Photo Lab, like you're talking about where they developed the film, like back
developing, the old school. This was back in 1990, 91 is when I started there. And so, yeah, it was processing rolls of film, making prints, doing, everything was, I printed each photo through a machine, but I had to make adjustments on each frame of film that went by, adding magenta or cyan. It was a pretty technical thing for a high school kid, but Eckerd had a really great training program, and I was able to kind of get in there. I had a little bit of interest in photography before then, but working there really sparked me because I'd get the expired film or whatever, and so I'd have be able to throw some rolls in there if I needed to, and they wouldn't charge me or whatever, and so I got to learn a lot also by watching everybody else's mistakes that would come through, whether it be underexposed rolls of film or overexposed, and I'd get to learn just by seeing everyone else's photos as well. So I got my first, I traded, I was 16 years old. I traded in my BMX bike for a Nikon camera at a Ace Whipple's pawn shop in downtown St. Pete. And,
you traded in your bike back in the day?
It was my BMX bike. I'd turned 16, so I didn't really ride it anymore. And I had a car by then, so I figured I drove my car down there with my BMX bike in the trunk, and he traded it for it wasn't the best Nikon camera, but it got me started, and it was an even trade. I don't even think I had to pay him any money. We just swapped it out even. So.
Gotcha. I got to ask this because you're bringing up developing film and stuff. Can you say on camera what the craziest thing you've seen someone try to develop at that photo lab back in the day?
I don't know. It's not as crazy as everybody maybe made it out to be. And we got some pretty risque stuff through there every once in a while, but nothing real crazy.
No one ever showed up to get their pictures and like hiding their face or nothing.
No. If anything, they would be proud to pick. We had one guy who's kind of a regular guy that would always bring in pictures of models that he'd shoot in his backyard or whatever, but he thought he was the man every time he came in. But, that was about it. Nothing real crazy.
I got you. So when did this become full time for you?
So through high school, then I went to University of Florida and got actually right after high school, I worked for the local kind of senior picture studio, and I had a couple of really good mentors there that kind of got me going. And from there, I kind of wanted to be a photojournalist. So I went to University of Florida, graduated from the journalism school there with a degree in journalism, specializing in photojournalism. And then, did a couple of internships and kind of came back to St. Pete and just started freelancing. This was post 9/11. So the newspaper industry had kind of stopped hiring staff photographers. The newspaper industry had kind of a freeze going on. So I couldn't find a job. Nobody would hire me. So I just started freelancing from there. And honestly, it's probably one of the best things that could have happened. A lot of my friends that did get jobs right out of college have all been laid off by the newspaper industry by now, maybe even a couple times. Very few of them are still working in the newspaper industry. And a lot of them were able to transition and go freelance. But I just started freelance from the start and just kind of have built up my business from there.
Yeah, so like that's funny. So that kind of brings me to one thing I was going to ask you was with tech. I mean, you mentioned people getting laid off at the newspapers, which is all due to technology, right?
Yep.
I mean, like the back in the day, getting your newspaper delivered to your house, and I mean that's
It
a
was huge.
dying.
I mean, that's one of the things that got me interested in photography to begin with. Is we in St. Pete, we subscribe to the St. Pete Times, and it's one of the best. And now it's the Tampa Bay Times, but back then it was the St. Pete Times, and it was known for being one of the best photo-driven newspapers in the country. It was just a phenomenal paper. And I remember, I would just go through the newspaper and read it just to look at the photos. It was really, really phenomenal. And I was lucky enough to, during college and after college, I was able to kind of work for the St. Pete Times as a freelancer. And while I was in college, I actually worked for the Inverness or Citrus County Bureau on the weekends. I'd come down from Gainesville and work in Inverness and stuff like that. So it was great learning experience. The great thing about being a newspaper photographer is you're exposed to so many different aspects of photography. There's documentary type journalism, but you're also going to shoot some portraits here and there and stuff like that. So I was exposed to a lot of different things, and I realized that I really loved shooting portraits of people. That was kind of one of the things I really, really enjoyed the most. But coming down here really changed the way I shoot in that I wasn't really able to get much work from the local newspapers anymore. When I went and kind of talked to the news press, they could offer me a little bit of work. It was mostly Friday night football or something like that, high school football. But it wasn't like when we lived in Kentucky. I'd do 10 assignments a week for the local paper, whereas down here just wasn't a lot of it to go around, and they didn't really have the budgets that the other newspapers had. So I had to kind of reinvent myself when we got down here, and I transitioned into, I kind of figured that I wanted to do more portrait work. I really enjoyed working.
So when you say, tell me, when you say portrait work, like you're not talking like glamour photos with like my feather boa and
yeah, no,
right?
no, I don't do like family photos or maternity photos or anything like that. It's more editorial, I guess, portrait work. So if a magazine needs a portrait of somebody to run with the story, like, to send a photographer out there to get a portrait of that person. And I really like that because I got to meet a lot of really fascinating people, really interesting people that had some great stories, and I could kind of help tell their story with my photos. And sometimes that would be more of the documentary style stuff, or I would set up some nice lights and do nice lit portrait. But that's really the stuff I enjoyed getting, was kind of getting people to relax and taking their portrait and just kind of being able to play with some lighting and stuff like that. So I kind of reinvented myself when we got down here, and I went and talked to Gulfshore Life, and they started giving me work kind of right off the bat, and I got lucky and just kind of started working for them right around then, and just slowly through the years, built up a decent client list. And
yeah, that's a great magazine. If anyone's watching this, you live in Southwest Florida, Gulfshore Life, Gulfshore Business. I was telling Brian off the air, those two plus Florida Weekly, those are the three that I like reading locally.
Right.
So good job to them. So then your favorite thing then, if I can just add your answer, the favorite thing to shoot is then the portraits of the people?
Yeah, like just, man, there's so many fascinating people out there, and so yeah, you get to meet a lot of interesting people. You get to hear their stories, and I enjoy it because I kind of get a little bit of one-on-one time. I get to kind of step in their life for a few moments and kind of see what it's like to be them and get to hear their stories and kind of make a little bit of a connection and I love it. I'm a people guy, so I love talking to people.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Yeah, I know.
it's great. I mean, you know, there's no pressure or anything. You know, there's definitely some shoots that, you know, you get somebody that's not in the best mood or whatever. But, you know, my job as a photographer is get people to relax and have a good time and make sure to get some good images out of it.
Yeah, like you got to do, that's pretty funny, man. You got to do that pretty quick. Like you got to make that connection, you know, quick right off the bat. And you do, you don't do like family stuff, right?
Right.
And so
I'm not like I would say there's like retail photographers that have businesses that do family portraits or maternity portraits or wedding pictures. And I would call that more as like a retail photographer. So they are selling prints and selling images and making memories and stuff like that for families. I don't do that. It was never anything I really wanted to do. And maybe it's more of my photojournalism background is I always like to kind of keep everything as real as possible. And you know, I love photographing people in their environment. That's kind of what I specialize in. It's called environmental portraits. So it's a lawyer in his office, or it's a farmer in his field, or, you know, it's a surfer at the beach, or, you know, whoever. It's them in their environment. And,
so you guys got to have that skill, that connection, because like, I can say this because you're in two different businesses, but my friend, Summer Halgram does like family photos and things like
Sure.
that. And watching her when our kids were younger, like, dude, you gotta like the connection she would make so quick to get these kids to smile. You know, you have to, and she's awesome at it. And you have to do the same thing with freaking grown adults in their own work environment, right?
Right. Yeah, and you know, and I don't mean to, you know, the retail photographers, they definitely, that industry has changed so much too, and that they are really getting more of a photojournalistic look to a lot of their images. And when people like, I know I want pictures of my kids having fun and doing, you know, being themselves, more so than just like the Sears portrait studio of somebody. You know?
Yeah,
You know,
right.
like,
Yeah, you see more and more of those photos are all outside
yeah,
and, you know, in different environments, not like the screen behind them. You know, like
right.
you said everyone look this
Yeah.
way.
No, and I think for me more, I don't enjoy with being a retail photographer. You really have to kind of work on customer service and you know, selling prints. You know, that's kind of where you make your money. Is you want people to buy prints. And with editorial and commercial photography, I go out there, they tell me what to shoot, I shoot it, I kind of give it my little spin on things, and then I send them an invoice and I'm done. You know, I don't have to worry about I don't have to worry about making sure you know, the prints look good, or, you know, the printer didn't mess up or anything like that. So, and I still have to make sure my customers are happy as well, but I guess it's just different. I don't have to worry about, you know, doing sales tax and stuff.
Yeah,
like that.
you're snapping the photo and job's done. Once you send it off, they're gonna
Sure.
like, sell the prints. So then with your current job with golf or the Gulfshore life work and that type of stuff, does anything stand out to you as being like your most favorite shoot or your most interesting? Like, do you have?
You know, gosh, I'll be honest with you. I was telling you this a little bit earlier. You know, Gulfshore Life has some new leadership there. There's a new creative director, and I've really hit it off with him. And the past 5 or 6 months or so that I've been working with him, you know, before that, I was in a little bit of a slump. I wasn't feeling as creative as I used to be. I kind of felt like I was just this guy pushing a button on a black box and kind of just going through the routine. And the past 6 months working with this new creative director has really gotten me reinvigorated into doing what I do. And so, I mean, I've shot some really fun different assignments in the past few months. I've shot the August cover, which came out, and then I just shot the September cover, and then last week actually I shot not last week, the week before last, I shot the October cover that's going to be coming out. So I got 3 covers in a row. That's never happened with Gulfshore Life before. I think you know, I had 1 cover before that. That was last year. You know, I got to meet Randy Wayne White.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, and that was actually probably that was a great shoot. It was really interesting. you know, I know of Randy and his Doc Ford series of models
Yeah.
of books and stuff. And you know, it was kind of a last minute assignment. I got the phone call from my editor the night before I was going to go out there to meet him, and I thought maybe I'd get 15 minutes, 20 minutes with him or whatever, and I ended up spending almost 3 hours out there with him. He was just such a great guy. He's, you know, he's a man's man, and it was just great to talk to him. He loves baseball. His kids played baseball and fishing, and his connection he has with his sons. And no, it was really interesting, and just a super nice guy. And it's neat now. I'm Facebook friends with him, so every once in a while he'll like one of my
There you
photos or something on Facebook. So it's kind of fun.
I
But
met, dude, it's funny, man. It's like I read his, not to get off track here, but like I read when I was in high school, my grandma was a huge book reader. You know, was giving me his books, and I think it was one with Sanibel Flats, and then there was another. I read like the first 2 or 3. And, you know, I know the series continued, but I didn't get to finish him off. But I messaged him about being on.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it was a while ago. I'll throw another Hail Mary on it and see
Yeah, no, and
I'm
actually,
gonna name drop you, Brian. I'm going to name drop you on
do it. You can. I actually, I licensed a photo of him from that shoot to be on his new book jacket. So I'll have his book jacket photo, which will be kind of neat to see. But yeah, just a super nice guy, and you know, not at all what I was expecting, but it was such a great shoot. It was just fun to hang out with him. I could have, you know, and it was the type of thing too. I knew the magazine was going to want to cover, and a lot of times they'll put, you know, they'll want, you know, hair and makeup and a stylist and all this stuff, and it was so short notice. I couldn't even get and find an assistant to meet me out there because it was so short notice. But I think it actually worked out for the best that it was just me and the camera and nobody else. You know, there wasn't a lot of people making a fuss. You know, it was a real. I felt like I had a pretty good connection with them out there. It was like I said, it was just a great afternoon.
Nice. So let's get into real quick with tech. You know,
Sure.
kind of talked about it a little bit with your, you know, back in the day when you used to develop.
I mean, my first camera was film, and I shot film up until 2000, I think. In 2000, I was working for the St. Pete Times and the Citrus County Bureau, and they made the transition to digital. And up until that point, you know, each photographer paid for their own camera and lenses and bags and all that kind of stuff. And then when digital came through, it was so expensive. They had the newspaper had to buy digital kits for every photographer. So I showed up to work one weekend, and I was just a part-time guy. I'd put in like, you know, 20 hours a week basically for the little bureau. But I walked in, I got a brand new Nikon D1 camera at the time. Was just a technological breakthrough. It was the size of a regular camera. Before that, digital cameras were just enormous. They had big grips on them and were super slow. But I came in, I had a whole camera kit with lenses and flashes and camera bodies, and I thought it was hot stuff being in college with that kind of technology to be able to use and take home and shoot. And then I had sold all my film gear, and I did my first internship in Iowa City, Iowa, and they hadn't gone digital yet, so I had to go back to shooting film, and it was a little tough to go back to shooting film after being spoiled with digital. And then,
do they still make film?
They do. Actually, I just did a project for Downtown House of Pizza last year, and I shot it all on Hasselblad medium format film camera. And so if you go into Downtown House of Pizza, you'll see all my prints on the wall in there. It's kind of a cool.
But what made you do it?
Project.
Why'd you shoot with film and not digital on that?
Just to make it a little different.
It looks different?
Yeah, I mean, I the way I did it is I scanned in the full frame of film. So you see on the side, it'll say, you know, Fujifilm, you know, or actually I think I used Kodak Tri-X. So you know, you see the edges of the film where it says Kodak, and you see the exact full frame of everything. It just looks a little different. You got to go check it out. It's and also D-Hop's like the best pizza in town anyway.
That is pretty good. That's right by Sidecar Treats, right?
Yep. Yeah, just down the street. Right, Patio de Leon. Yeah.
I've destroyed some popcorn in there once or twice already.
Yeah.
Hey, so where do you see tech taking the photography business?
So it's been really exciting. You know, I've been digital since, like I said, about 2000, 2001. and you know, it's been incredible to and I'm a Gen Xer, so we don't assimilate to new technologies maybe as quick as the younger generation, but I try and stay up with things, and the biggest thing is I still like to do a lot of stuff in camera. I hate to rely too much on Photoshop with things, and that's probably some of the photojournalism background I have too. The next step I think for digital photography is this whole mirrorless revolution that's coming out. Whereas, I still use
mirrorless.
Mirrorless. So yeah, DSLRs are digital single lens reflex cameras. So you still have light coming in. There's a little mirror that flaps up and then exposes the frame. Whereas this is just the image is going straight to the sensor. There's nothing in between. And the technology that's going on with those cameras and the image stabilizing and the amount of information you can get on the sensor because you're actually having the lens closer to the sensors. The quality is pretty unbelievable. So I may actually make the jump to mirrorless will be the next step in where I go as a photographer.
Yeah, I've seen before where people are talking about, I don't know how far down the road, but basically, you have these contacts and you just blink a certain way.
Yeah.
Have you seen that? Like,
yeah, I mean, I don't know.
I know that's the quality of your stuff, but like, that's pretty wild, man.
I mean, I think about the Google Glass thing that was for a while where you had a little camera up on your,
right.
I mean, that didn't really go very far. I don't know. They thought that was going to be revolutionary.
They work these things out. They test them, and then they keep making them better.
So maybe, but it's interesting. I still love a still image. I love being able to create that, and I hope there's still an audience for that in the future. I know I've seen some really cool things done with what they call moving portraits, where almost kind of just like a loop that just of a little bit of movement in a portrait, especially on Instagram, those little hyper loops, whatever they do with the, where it's like just a couple seconds of the images kind of rotating and stuff. Yeah. I mean, that stuff's really interesting, and it's been fun to watch my daughter. She just turned 14 yesterday, but all summer long I had her on a couple shoots with me, shooting behind the scenes videos with her iPhone. And the first time I did it, I had no expectations. She's my 13-year-old daughter. She's a teenager. And it's like, just come on out with me and shoot some behind the scenes photos. And
it's brilliant, by the way, dude.
She blew me away, completely blew me out of the water. We were at the Sanibel Causeway, which is 15 minutes away from where I live. And I was doing a shoot there. It's one of the captains of Clean Water. And by the time we had packed up the truck with all my gear and stuff and drove home, I pulled in the driveway and she hands me her phone and says, "Here, I just edited everything." And I'm like, what do you mean? She had like a full minute edited out with royalty-free music, with the Gulfshore Life graphics already on and all sorts of little graphics in there. And I was like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. I was like, how did you do this? She had all the right edits and movements, and she had done some time lapse stuff in there, and I was like, I was just completely blown away. So I've been sharing stuff like that with the magazine, and I had her come out on another cover shoot for Gulfshore Life, and then just a couple Fridays ago she did the October cover shoot too. So I'm hoping to see her really. It's been so fun watching her do that and get to. And being able to work with her too is been kind of fun, It's,
right.
If I would have had that kind of skill or that kind of creativeness at age 13, I mean, who knows where I'd be right now? I mean,
but look how cool that. So like, I was laughing with a buddy of mine a few years ago where he has a TV production degree from FSU. I'm not gonna name his name, Dylan Drake. But he was telling me, he's like, dude, I paid whatever it was, $40,000 back in the day to have this degree that like 10-year-old kids now can do on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like your daughter busted out an entire video, which would have taken someone, you had to pay a professional, 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago several $1,000s to
Oh,
go
for
do
sure.
what she just did.
Well, several $1,000s and then waited a month or so for it to be edited, you know, like,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
that's what blew me away was the quality of the video. She's shooting 4K on her little iPhone XR, and, you know, being able to edit it that fast and get it, you know, I mean, we did a couple things to clean it up a little bit afterwards, but to have that kind of a rough edit right away that fast, man, I mean, there's no telling what the future can hold for that kind of stuff. Is just, I think
No
it's
doubt.
incredible. So
No doubt. All right. So last thing, and we'll get wrapped up here.
Sure.
So what tips do you have? There's someone out here watching this now. Maybe they love photography, or, you know, they want to get into it. Any tips for getting into this business?
Gosh, you know, I get that a lot. I think the biggest thing is, and I say this with anybody who's looking to start their own business. I have a friend that started like a lawn care business and landscaping business, but, you know, a higher end commercial kind of level. And the biggest thing is to just take that first step and don't be afraid to fail. You know, you're going to have good times and bad times, but man, if you really enjoy doing something and you think you got a product that people are going to appreciate, just do it. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? You know, you can always start all over, always go get a job somewhere or something. But if you really believe in what you're doing, just do it. You know, that's sometimes that mental block of just getting over it is the hardest part for people to think, like, oh my gosh, I gotta have all this gear to get started. I have to have all this experience to get started. I have to do all this stuff. I have to know the right people. You don't. I mean, when I started as a freelance photographer, I had one camera and 2 lenses, and that's it. I mean, and I worked that way for my first 2 or 3 years as a photographer, and just made do with what I had, and was able to eke out a living and have the drive to kind of keep doing it. And you know, it's not easy, but if you keep at it, you'll be fine. People do it every day. And if I tell you what, if I can run a business, anybody can run a business. Sorry, it's my wife right there.
Oh, what's up, Noelle?
I'm not the smartest business owner in the world, but you know, like I said, if I can run a business, anybody can run a business. And you know, like I said, just don't get hung up thinking you need all sorts of stuff to get started. If you really want to do it, just do it. I'll be honest with you. One of the things I'm looking for right now is someone to mentor. You know, I get a lot of people out there that have contacted me in the past few years saying, "Oh, I want to be an assistant. I want to come help out on one of your shoots." And I had a situation last 2 or so weeks where I knew I had a big commercial shoot coming up, and I needed some extra help. And I've got a couple assistants here in town that I use on a regular basis, but they were already booked with other work on those days, and I needed someone. So I kind of went through this list of people that I have, and every single one that I called, they're working a 9 to 5. So it was, you know, and I usually need people between 9
Right,
and 5
during
to
those times.
come help out. So if there's anybody that doesn't have a 9 to 5 that is interested in working with me, or you know, interested in knowing more, and you know, really wants to be a photographer, really wants that to be their thing, shoot me an email. Let's meet up for coffee. Let's go talk. I'd also like to talk one more thing. One of the things I do every year, I pick a nonprofit to donate my time to do a photo project with. Most of them are portrait-based projects. And the last one I did was for Grace Place in Naples. And it's just, it's something really fulfilling that I enjoy doing. And I've got a couple of nonprofits through the next year or so that I'm going to be working with. But if there's anybody out there at a nonprofit that's looking to do a project, or would be interested in doing one, I'd love to do that. And also I'd love to bring my daughter on board to shoot some behind the scenes video for their social media and stuff like that.
Yeah. Have you ever met Rob Wan from Caleb's Crusade Against Childhood Cancer?
I have not.
Okay, I'll connect the two of you. That's my buddy, and he's
Sure.
local. And it's an amazing charity.
Okay, great.
Well, hey, Brian, dude, appreciate it, man.
For sure.
Yeah, so if anyone does want to work with you as a mentor, has that nonprofit, or wants to hire you, how do they get in touch with you, and where can they find your stuff at?
So the best way to get in touch with me is just through an email. My email address is mail, M-A-I-L, @briantietz.com. And then my website is just www.briantietz.com. You can see some of my recent work on there. I don't have a Facebook page. I kind of stopped my Facebook business page, but I do have an Instagram account that I keep updated with a lot of my behind the scenes photos and some recent work that I put out there. There's also a link to my Instagram page on my website at briantietz.com as well.
Cool, man. Well, dude, I appreciate you being with me today. Make sure you tell Grayson I said what's up.
Yeah, will do, for sure. And hey, dude, thanks for asking me on here. This is the first time I've ever done a podcast, so I hope I did all right.
Yeah, man, you did great. You did great. Good job.
Right.
So that's Brian Tietz, you guys. You want to connect with him, look him up. Great guy, great family here in town, doing some cool work out there. Remember, guys, if I can help you in the mortgage business, that's what I do for a living. You want to own a home or you want to refinance your current mortgage to save money monthly or do a cash out refinance to pay off all that credit card debt, I can help you out. Give me a call at 239-437-4278. We connect with all our social medias, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all those places you're at, except for Snapchat. I'm not on Snapchat. I haven't made that move. Don't plan to. Please connect with me. And don't forget, like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. Brian, thanks again, dude. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you. Dude, I think you should totally do Snapchat. You can get the little bunny ears on.
I need Snapchat to put like hair filters in.
There you go.
Give me a hair filter. All right, man. Take care, dude.
All right, thanks, dude.
See you, buddy.